Excuse me. Hopefully my internet doesn't go off again.
Challenge down. Clap, clap.
Sorry, I'm opening my dashboard. It says my bitrate is bad, which doesn't surprise me. My bitrate, sorry, not my bitrate, I'm tired. My internet didn't come back on until like 5 hours ago. And then it went back off for a couple hours. I was about to stream at like 11:30, 11 o'clock my time, and the internet went back off right as I went out for my cigarette, right before I started my stream. I went out to smoke and had a YouTube video playing on my computer. I came back in and the YouTube video was frozen because my internet had went out like the minute I had gone outside.
That kill was sponsored by Hyperion.
And so I took a nap, and I just so happened to wake up from my nap when I was looking at this, because I was like sitting in the chair where I would sit when I would play video games, and I had fallen asleep waiting for the stuff to come back on. Put a friggin' sock in it. I scare myself sometimes with how much I can relate to the doppelganger. Because I don't necessarily relate to Jack. I relate to the doppelganger more just because of his situation. I think a lot of people can relate to the doppelganger though.
No big deal.
Sorry, I just wanted the moonstone. The torques are, for whatever reason, very, very rich in moonstone. Especially those flying things. They're all like themed after a movie's monster. I don't know if the basilisk ones are, but I know the torques themselves, all the different types of torques are all based off of different movie monsters. The flying things. Oh shit. I should have went faster. Yeah, the other light's unclicked. Damn it. Should have went faster. Shouldn't have tried to kill all these low-level enemies for their moonstone. Alright, now we should definitely make it. Suave. I don't know why people, like English-speaking people, use suave as like a good job sort of thing, because suave means soft. I wonder what like movie popularized that term in that manner.
Well, hey there. That guy pops the call. I actually killed him? I mean, I'm so cool. I need a sweater? Whoa.
Oh my goodness. I was trying to use the blast radius to blow it off. But I overestimated it. It ain't no volcano. What's the word for like an ice volcano,
Whoa.
if there is one.
Things they got over there look bang tidy. Here to help, if the price is right. Good to meet you.
Hey, what's up, kid?
Spring says you're trying to get your mitts on some military
Surely
AI.
there's a planet out there that has such a
it's your
cool
lucky
surface
day.
temperature,
You can have
but
each one
still
from the
has a
Drakensberg.
molten
I hear
core,
the bosun and the skipper who run that place
whereby
are well-known
most of the
collectors of rare and nifty
water, anything that
intelligences
gets
of the
forced out the
artificial
surface
persuasion.
gets forced out
Trouble
through
is, it's not like you can just
volcanoes
walk right
that
up to
would
the place
turn
and ask
to
to have
ice
an
nearly
AI.
instantly. Of course, it would still be a normal volcano in the sense that it
Okay.
would release magma that
They're a
would get
tricky pair,
instantly
but
hardened.
maybe they'll let you on board right off the bat. I'm updating
But
your record
in
with the
theory,
most
it is
direct
possible.
route there.
Just not the literal ice being inside the volcano causing it to erupt. Unless maybe if it was all water, because of course water can't be compressed, so if you had something that was like a bunch of super cool water and salt. Also, what's up, Banana Split? An ice cano.
The Drakensberg's a juicy wreck, all right. Ex-Star frigate, don't you know?
Frigicano.
It's stuffed with tech I could half-inch pinch. The bosun and skipper
Whatever
have
you
been
want
good
to
at
call it.
keeping me out.
Ooh, a
Now you're
badass.
here, that's about to change.
The bastard.
Superstar role model. I wish this class mod was actually good, because I love the name of it.
Oh, that one.
Oh, come on. Hit detection. Cursed railings. I always found that funny that you can freeze the guys on top of the things that can't be frozen, and they'll constantly take damage because of it. How do you use a moonscaper?
Drakensberg, ex-Star warship and all that, crashed before the
I
crack.
personally have never used it, but
Now a bunch of
if you're
right
trying to use it in the
scouts
terms
there,
of rocket
led by the
jumping, then
bosun
you need
and
to
his
shoot it
friend,
at the
what's
ground.
called the skipper.
Preferably double shot it
Anyone
if you
knows
want
what
to go
shell's like,
further.
which makes your
Wait
head
for the
scratch.
little bombs
Anyway,
to lift off the
way
ground,
inside,
and
don't
just
be
as
shy
they're
to say
about
hello to the locals on the
at the
way.
full height, stand in front of them and jump. takes a little bit to get used to the timing, because it always takes the same amount of time for the bombs to go off. Or if you're trying to use the Moonscaper on Ned to farm him, then you need to shoot the projectiles out of the gun, throw the weapon out of your inventory while the bombs are on the ground and they haven't exploded yet, and then pick up the gun again. It also works with other weapons too, like the Wombat. The Wombat is the gun that I use for that purpose because it's slightly faster. Or whatever the hell the gun's called that you get for the quest, that's a blue, and it shoots the bombs that explode as well. I have it on my other character, I just can't ever remember what the actual name of it is. You have to do the... what's it? The quest chain for Pickle, I think, to get it? Or maybe that's... I think that's for the Boganella. There's another one that you do to get that.
Hey, not crappy loot.
Ooh. It just gave me an upgraded shotgun without it even being a shotgun. To sell stuff. Dang it. I was short just by a little bit. They should go up, unless the PS4 physics for it are different. That's definitely how it worked on the 360 version. But I've never had it on the PS4, so... Gotta get rid of my superstar role model. Boolean? How do you pronounce that word? They didn't misspell the scav words enough in this game. It's almost like they were trying to act like somehow they were smarter than us. I'm kidding, of course. I also need a new rocket launcher. Let's actually try this thing out. It's got a Mallowan barrel on it.
I don't know. God, I hate this guy.
You should have talked to me when I was online earlier playing Darkest Dungeon, man.
How about you leave now and the bosun won't tear you to
If I was on,
pieces? What do you
if you were
say?
on anyways, I didn't.
Called it, didn't I?
I honestly don't pay attention to my friends list very much.
The bridge has a manual override.
Sorry if that makes me sound like an asshole, I just don't.
To your echo. Is that the squealing little thief pickle I hear?
People normally always talk to me first. Ooh, that's a spitter.
The kids should stay away. That was your one warning.
I always forget in this game you only have to press it once because there's no marking it for red. I love how the sound effect is fucked up on this version. It didn't sound very explosion-y now, did it? It's the same thing with the Moon Zoomy station. On the 360 version, it's not glitched out, and when it says smack it, it will actually tell you blah 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 blah, some bullshit. But on this version, the machine never talks back. It just throws a little dialogue box up for a half a second, and then she says, just smack it. I never invite people, man.
I do have another bright idea, though. I think our definitions of
if you don't see me playing Borderlands and you see me playing like a game where I'm just playing by myself, it's just because I'm just sitting there. I'm never a person who invites other people to play. And when I'm streaming, I always like to play by myself. I don't like getting scatterbrained. I don't like getting scatterbrained, and I don't like having to share loot, and I don't like to have to feel obligated to tell a person I'm save and quitting every time I want to farm something, or I want to stop myself from going over a ledge or something like that. I don't know, you can't do that in multiplayer because it just boots the other person out of your freaking game. They don't just reset to the main menu with you, which has always been my main gripe about Borderlands multiplayer. Is it, why are you gonna make the people get, like, booted back to the main menu and not have them still be in my party when I'm in the main menu? If they wanted to leave, they could leave the party themselves. Like that. I don't know, this system has always been, like, so bizarre to me. I should be able to save and quit with someone in a group and press the continue button and have them load back in with me on a save and quit for farming reasons. But currently, you can't farm multiplayer unless you're on fucking PC. And even then, you'd have to be LANing. Or split screen or something like that in order to even make it work. And I mean that just because on LAN, the connection is so instant, you don't have to wait. And then split screen is obvious, it just stays because you're there. But it still makes you, if I remember correctly, it still makes you reload the split screen character though. Oh fuck, I gotta remember not to use boost that much. Again, it's not that I won't play with you, dude. You just gotta invite me when you see me not streaming. For a while, I never had anyone on my stream, and then I had a couple of people who wanted to play with me really badly, so I let them play with me on stream, but then it just ends up degrading my, like, gameplay and stream quality.
I know what you're up to, kid.
Which it's not like it matters. I don't have a bunch of fucking people watching me anyways. But the few people who do come by don't want to hear, like... And I'm not saying that you are a 13-year-old kid, but most people, even other 13-year-old kids, don't want to hear 13-year-old kids. For whatever reason, that's just how it goes. And then especially any bit of older audience, even though older audiences are very rare. My friend Teddy is one of the only people I know who is like over 30 that watches streams at all. And he's stopped watching streams as much since he started streaming himself. Since he figured out how to do that stuff. If you want to see or talk to my friend Teddy, because he might actually, if you have like GTA 5 or anything like that, that's what he plays. And he does like late night GTA 5 online, so you might be able to play with him. I hate to encourage you to go somewhere else to get someone to play with, but he also will probably be doing some Borderlands stuff in the future, although I don't know when. He's had Borderlands 2 for a long ass time now. He got it around Valentine's Day of this year, and I don't think he's played it on PS4 once. That's not me trying to put flack on him, it's just like I wanted to play Borderlands with him like a fucking year and a half ago when he first met me. Because he came to my streams initially for Neo. Because Neo has a lot of the same qualities that Borderlands has in it. Just, it's a lot harder and more third-person action game. But for me, the replayability still stands there. Which is funny because Neo is a game that was critiqued for its lack of variety, but Borderlands is the definition of lack of enemy variety in a game. But it doesn't matter because the game's about the loot and stuff like that. It's not about having 1,000 different enemies. You just have enemy archetypes and then stronger versions of such. Granted, Neo didn't do it even on as large of a scale that Borderlands did, but it was also the first game in that type from that developer, really. Sorry to always be a nerd about video games as well. I know I get rambly. But that's just who I am. I always consider myself having more of a mature stream. As young as I sound, I smoke cigarettes, I smoke weed, I drink occasionally on my streams. It's not like, I don't want like a 13-year-old kid watching me and getting the impression that doing the stuff that I do is something that they'd want to do. I'm not trying to be a bad role model for kids. Even though I don't give a crap about entertaining kids. Give a shit, even. I hate the fact that YouTube has become KidTube. Now you can't even have stuff on YouTube anymore that used to be okay on YouTube with ads because of new restrictions. Like, you look at a lot of the Creatures old videos that have stuff to do with like James or Alex, specifically pertaining to what is now Cow Chop, and they used to do some like, I mean they still do really fucked up shit, but they used to do some like, they had some messed up shit in the background. They used to get away with streaming on Twitch having a blow up sex doll in the background. You don't get away with that kind of shit anymore. That's the kind of shit that gets your stream shut off.
Let's double the double. And the world just got 25% more handsome. Back here. From one jack to another. Well done. That's fast.
Trust me, I did a stream like 2 to 3 weeks ago. That was me and a kid trying to play the crew. And I think the entire 2 to 3 hours of the stream, I completed maybe 3 or 4 events. And that's just completing it. I can't even remember if I won any of them. Or if I did, it was only because I was using my stupidly high upgraded car versus his unupgraded stuff, but it's still just like you get more focused on the co-op than the actual game. I've always found it funny that these things have such a hard time killing the player because of how they're programmed. The tiny ones will actually kill you faster than the bigger ones will, because the bigger ones aren't programmed to actually attack you rapidly. They always knock you away after a couple hits, which makes it so that the other ones can't hit you. I guess it's a little bit of an oversight on their part, the fact that you can literally just stand there and these things they're pretty much incapable of killing you if you have a slightly above average shield. And considering that you can jump around and move to the point where they can't hit you, it's even more ridiculous. Like, they do like 8 damage a projectile to me. If you didn't know, there is a chest over here.
You ain't afraid of heights, are you?
I'm only a little. Deathly, completely afraid of them.
Try looking up top for the valve.
Or, sorry, it's not here. I'm thinking of a different spot like this. Or, wait a sec. I swore that there was a chest around here. No, it's not.
Round 2. You asked for it.
After that last lot of losers, you better send someone a bit harder. Good point. Honey bunches, send our meanest, grisliest men to grind a Vault Hunter to meaty dust.
Was already on it, my love.
Stop giving
That thing did spins out of the loop. Howdy, Hyro. Just went out. Some fucking retard hit main substation. Like, hit the actual building. They had to bring in and repair a bunch of those router things that are inside of those rooms. The person who did it ran as well, and they still haven't found out who crashed a car there. Because the person who, like, they can't trace the car to the owner. The person who actually owns the car, or had owned the car previously, had just sold it to someone else. Some fucking weird ass shit. He must have been really angry with his service or something, or just clinically retarded. Could be both. Yeah, and it's like I said earlier, it went out for 5 hours, and it came back on for about 2. They encountered another problem with it because of this thing that happened, so it got shut off again for another hour and a half to 2 hours. I was about to stream at like 11:30 around that time, and I had gone out for a smoke, and I came back in and it was off. Because I was in the middle of watching a YouTube video right as I walked outside, and I came in and my YouTube video was buffering because it was about 3/4 of the way through it.
What have I paid you for? Punish the Vault Hunter!
Wrecked. Collaborate and listen. Jack is back with a brand new edition. I say that because using the skill called collaborate. Still not even comparable to the wet week. Oh, that's a cryo grenade. Wow. Only took us until level 15 to find a single one. Wow, we made it all the way up there that time. Rocket launcher! And they just both couldn't be a fucking Torg now, could they?
Now, get back to the bridge and turn on the main flow. My best men will gladly meet you there, Vault Hunter, to boil you in the juices of their skill. You're creepy, mister. I thought the last ones we killed were your best men. No, we've got more. Oh, right.
Bye. Oh yeah, I need to sell. I'm gonna level up to 16 soon, so I can sell that. Oh. I'll see you, Hyro. Peace out, man.
Oh, that's a fun smell.
Fun fact, methane doesn't actually smell like anything in real life. It's actually the sulfur that you're smelling that is common around methane. Fun fact. Incorrect science. Methane is odorless. You cannot smell it. They have to add stuff into it to make it smell on an industrial level.
You see this face? Run!
Sulfur is what causes the eggy smell. Smart people would know that. The type of chemical that methane is makes it not a smelly chemical. Like the shape of it. The reason why sulfur is always associated with things that smell is because of the shape of the molecule and the effect it has on things that it's bound to. For example, if you combined magnesium with sulfur and make magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salt, which is a naturally occurring salt, it smells like flowers. It doesn't smell like rotten eggs, even though it's a magnesium bonded to a sulfur. Some little chemistry factoids for you. If you ever wanted to seem like a smartass to a friend. Yeah, methane, odorless. Sulfur, anything to do with sulfur has odor. Even if it's not necessarily a bad odor. Like I said, magnesium sulfate, also known as Epsom salt, has a fragrant smell. It does not have a nasty egg smell. Anyone who's ever had someone in their family who has ever treated like foot problems would know about Epsom salt. Or anyone who's ever been in gardening before. A lot of potting soils get deficient in magnesium sulfate because they don't add stuff into the potting soil that has it naturally. Because they use a very specific kind of thing for potting soil, and that's not good. So your potting soil tends to end up mineral deficient in some way, shape, or form. I don't even know why they're legally allowed to sell potting soil on a large scale, because a lot of the potting soil that they sell at stores is barely enough for a plant to survive. You'll plant a plant in potting soil you get at most stores, your plant will survive for probably 2 to 3 weeks, like showing very, very strong growth, and then all of a sudden it'll just slow down and the entire thing will turn yellow and die. For the most part. And if it doesn't, like, turn yellow and die, also I realize I put 2 fucking machine guns on, like an idiot. It's one of those qualms with marketing nowadays where they get people who are trying to get into gardening who don't know about the natural decay and why compost is something that you want in all gardens, not just some gardens. the thing that that all potting soils also get deficient in, because they're not allowed to have them in, is bacteria and other small organisms. They're not legally allowed to transport that kind of stuff for fear of invasive shit. So normally they have to do some form of cooking the soil. So they have to bring the soil up to a certain temperature to kill off all the bacteria and bugs in it. And then they can sell it. And what that does is you end up with a soil life, or a lack of soil life. And when you're talking about soil, you're not just talking about the dirt in it. You're also talking about the worms that live in it. You're talking about the bacteria that lives in it. Because if you're just talking about the dirt as the dirt, then that's what dirt is. Soil is when you have a mixture of those things, organic matter and everything. And you'd be surprised the amount of people who have gardens that don't follow any of those basic principles, and their garden turns yellow every single year at the same time, and they just assume that's normal for their plants to die off like that. And then people ask me, because so many people will come by and they'll see me like working outside, and they'll be like, wow, that thing looks great, man, or that looks awesome, dude, or something. Or like my friend Mike has always commented on it. It's like the amount of people who don't know about cloning plants. Like, again, most of my neighbors, when I start to tell them about cloning, or they hear the word cloning, they start to think I'm like... Because the people around here, they're just not very intelligent, I guess you would say. Most of them drink. So concepts like cloning plants or making cuttings of a plant is like fucking wild to them. Most of them still haven't even heard what a fucking graft is, and you have to tell them, like, you know how there are the apple trees that can grow multiple types of apples, right? And you have to like you have to baby them, and you have to treat them like they're fucking 5 years old, but you have to be nice about it. You can't be an asshole about it, even though the person only has the learning capabilities of a fucking 10-year-old, because all they do is drink alcohol every single day, and you're trying to, like, help them be better in their garden, because everyone is just like the logic of, you just stick it in the ground and it grow. What me do about that? How you screw that up? But there's a lot of things that people make the mistake of, and it's like, yeah, you can plant it in the ground anywhere. Planting it in the ground where you live is probably actually better than buying a container of potting soil and then putting a bunch of potting soil in the ground, acting like that's going to do anything for your plant. Like, I see dudes using potting soil in their fucking garden nowadays, and it's like, potting soil is like a sterile mixture of organic matter for plants in pots that don't need much nutrients. It was never meant to be your be-all, end-all gardening medium. It is rich in peat moss and perlite, both of which give absolutely fuck all to your plant in that pot. They're there to hold moisture and regulate and balance pH. You find peat moss in plants and potting soils for acidic plants, and you'll find dolomitic lime and a couple other things like calcined clay in alkaline potting soils. Or you'll find stuff like sand granules and other things that they use to sort of leaven it out, what you would find in like the Rocky Mountains and shit. If you look up a soil pH map, you'll see what I'm talking about. Gardening is a form of earth science. It just depends on the way that you look at it. Really. You can garden for more purposes than just to get food from it. A garden is a great way to get different species of insects and animals to come into your yard for analysis. I have chipmunks that come into my yard that I've gotten to the point where I can nearly hand feed them. I go out with like a little blue Panther planter's can of peanuts and stuff like that, and I just make a little shaking noise, and they'll be like, and you'll hear them make the little chippy chirp noise at me as I get close to the tree, and they'll come right down to the base of the tree, and I'll just like chuck them a foot away, and they'll come run down, grab one, and run back up the tree. I don't feed them much, but just enough to try and get them a little bit domesticated.
Challenge.
Also because my neighbor's cats constantly chase them while they try to get stuff to eat. And I don't want them in my garden, so I figure giving them something else to eat other than the things in my garden is better. And I love watching them, because you wouldn't assume how loud those little tiny guys can be. Little freaking chipmunks. They do like these clicky, long-ass chirp noises that some people think are birds.
You're to address me as baby or my dear, especially in front of the others.
Of course, my dear Bosie.
Mateys, attack!
I'm always doing what you would call ecological surveys. Holy shit, that guy's jumped. What the hell?
Jack.
Hey there, sorry about all that. Look, I'm not really with Captain Arscrack here.
I've helped document a couple subspecies back when I was in school for a school project, which is pretty cool. Even though I wasn't old enough at the time for it to be considered legitimate, my science teacher at the time, though, had it actually, like, sent forward to the thing where they do actual animal research and study to approve it, so that it can become an actual listed subspecies and not just something that people consider like the same. Because in order for something to become a subspecies or a cultivar or a breed, whatever you want to call it, you have to have enough unique traits that differ it from the original. Like the difference between a gray cat and a black cat sort of thing. You have that with just about anything, though. Especially now that we've bred everything into monstrosities of which they never used to be. I don't know. It's like, people's gardens are people's gardens, so I always feel like an asshole when I tell them, or if not when I tell them, if I told them, like, oh yeah, your plants are gonna do shit because you just stuck a bunch of nothing in your ground as ground, thinking that it had something in it, because they market it like it has something, because they put a bunch of lush plants and say, great potting soil mix, and a bunch of other garbage on the front of the bag like Miracle-Gro. But it actually accomplishes fuck all, because it doesn't have an NPK of hardly anything, and it has no worms and microbes in it, like I said. So that is like automatic shut off for your plants. As soon as they use up all the nutrients in the soil, there won't be any humic acid or anything else in the soil to help break down what isn't broken down yet, so no nutrient cycle will happen. You'll just have nutrients, all the nutrients will get sucked out, and then you'll just be left with a bunch of fluffy air in your pot. Because plants in pots drain the fuck out of the soil. I put probably about a fishing container's worth of worms in the bottom of all of my 8 to 10 gallon pots that I have outside. I don't buy a container of worms from the store to do that. like secret trick to collect a bunch of worms easily. If you ever wanted to know the true secret trick, go and get a rag, an old t-shirt, pair of pants or something that you don't like. Find a spot on your yard that you don't care about the grass turning a little bit yellow, and just lay the plant, the piece of cloth or whatever clothing item it is on the ground, and just wet it down to the ground so that it's like matted down. Come out in a couple days, like 2 to 3 days after it's been sitting there for a while, and just flip the cloth over, and you'll see a bunch of worms exposed on the surface. And all you do is you just take a shovel and cut around that area and cut that piece of sopping wet dirt out, and it'll just be full of worms that you can just easily pick out of the soil and either stick into a container for fishing and or stick them in the containers in your garden for growing plants. Worm slime has humic acid in it, along with their poop in small amounts, which is actually one of the most crucial things when it comes to plants being able to even uptake nutrients. Because there's a lot of water-insoluble chemicals that end up in soil that the plants can use. So you have water-soluble nitrogen in the form of nitrates, and then you have water-insoluble nitrogen that is bound to other chemicals inside of the soil, like, for example, blood meal. Blood meal is very, very rich in nitrogen, but all the nitrogen is locked behind a water-insoluble compound. So you have to either have worms in your soil or dilute like a tablespoon of vinegar to a gallon of water and then spray that near the root system of your plants to act as a mild acid for something to bind or break down that water-insoluble nitrogen. Because again, if you went to the store to buy bone meal to feed your plants, let's say you were learning online about growing, and some dude online told you to go get bone meal, even though your plant was already showing signs of not being able to get enough nutrients, just adding bone meal into the soil wouldn't fix that, because your plant wouldn't be able to absorb any of the nutrients, especially if it's already showing signs of not being able to get enough nutrients. The worse condition a plant is for nutrient like deficiencies, the harder it is to get a plant to come back from a nutrient deficiency. But, and this is the dumb thing about organic gardening, if you want to have an organic garden, there are certain things you can't use in your soil that are not harmful to humans, but are also not considered organic. So for another example, magnesium sulfate is considered an organic compound, even though it is a chemical. It's just a straight chemical. There's no anything else about it. It's not like a salve of anything. It is just a magnesium bonded to a sulfur. However, if you make calcium nitrate is a calcium bonded to a nitrogen. That doesn't exist naturally. Thereby, if you use that chemical in your garden, even though it's perfectly safe for your plants because it gives your plants calcium and it gives your plants nitrogen at the same time, which isn't easily accessed in a lot of potting soils or even in a lot of ground soil, especially if your ground soil is more alkaline. You have to add stuff to make it more acidic, like peat moss, which is why a lot of potting soils use peat moss as a cheap alternative to leavening the pH in it.
And when I march up to Helios with an army of badass robots, I'll be unfired so quickly it'll make Tacitus...
There's so many different, like, small things that people have lost over the years because of just, again, marketing. And it's so devious. Because you have people nowadays that are gardening and, like, you want to grow nice plants. You don't want to waste your time growing something that gives you, like, less quality of a product. And people will trick themselves sometimes into thinking that their half, like, dead plant is producing better stuff than the store. And that's not necessarily saying that it can't. But if your plant's probably half dead, it's probably also not producing very well than it would if you let it produce, like, optimally. I have a 6-foot cherry tomato plant outside, and so far, every single person who has tried it always told me they wished that cherry tomatoes tasted like that when you bought them from the store. And I always tell them that's because a lot of the soil that they use lacks magnesium sulfate. And they lack even watering. So soils that even do have enough amount of magnesium sulfate, a plant won't be able to uptake it due to uneven watering and not having a deep enough root system to take advantage of the water in the soil to do so. Same thing with calcium. So plants end up normally having a minute calcium and magnesium deficiency by the end of their growth cycle. And that is spotted by by lack of thickening of the stems. So if you have thin, wispy stalks on your plants that need to be support, if you're going like tomatoes, a lot of my tomatoes, the base of the stalk will get like a ½ inch to a full inch around easily by the end of the year. And people look at that and they think it's crazy because it looks like it's a small tree trunk. It doesn't look like a normal wispy tomato bush because I add extra magnesium and I add bone meal at the start of the year into the soil, and that gives you calcium, which is immediately available to the plant. It's not like eggshells, which is a thing that other people will tell you to put in your soil if it's deficient in calcium. Eggshells have to be broken down by bacteria first to separate the carbonate from the calcium. You will not have that happen in a noticeable period of time in your garden. Like, it'll take months for eggshells to break down. Bone meal, however, if you place it into an area that's already mulched and you mix it underneath the mulch and water it down in, bone meal and blood meal and stuff like that can break down within a month to be active for your plant in the soil. Especially if you put it by the drip line where it stays moist, because bacteria like your soil to be moist. They don't like it to be bone dry. It's the same thing when people try to make hot compost piles that eventually go cold because they run out of biomass, and then they just keep adding on to it thinking that that'll somehow make it go back to hot, but they're never adding the equivalent amount of biomass back to it to actually make the compost heat up again. Like me, I make hot compost very, very easily. And I always try to teach people about it because some people will create these nasty ass compost piles, but then they waste all their grass clippings on their yard, and the grass clipping is like the #1 key ingredient to a good compost pile. Keeping mounds of grass and leaves will help mask out that nasty rot smell and will help heat up the compost pile so that rot gets worked out by more fungi instead, and you end up with that nice fresh smell that, like, when you open up a bag of potting soil smell, except for it's a lot richer smelling, more like a bag of composted cow manure. It doesn't smell like actual shit, it just smells like decomposed grass, which has like that fresh molasses almost smell to it. I don't know. I've always been into microbiology, plant life, and animal life, all combined. You can't have one without the other, or else you start to have deficiencies in some way, shape, or form.
How are you going to put those shoes on? Honestly, you just blurt out threats without thinking. Good. Initiate the engine jettison sequence.
And it's just like how people always talk about, and I've talked about this too many times on my streams, to be honest, but people and their lack of understanding for bees drives me fucking insane. Being a person who's grown up in an area that has a multitude of species of bees. We have probably over 50 to 60 plus species of bees in this area. And those are just ones that I can identify and recognize. That's not counting all the species of bee that I don't recognize, or that I recognize as another subspecies of a different kind of bee. Because it's like, we have honeybees from people's beehives that they have. We have bumblebees of varied kinds. We have white-tailed bumblebees. We have the small, or the They have like more yellow than black, and then we have the giant bumblebees. We have the carpenter bees, and then the orange carpenter bee, or whatever the hell it's called. I just know that that's what it is. You can tell it's a carpenter bee and not a bumblebee if it doesn't have any fuzz on its butt. Bumblebees always have a fuzzy butt. Carpenter bees don't. You have squash bees as well. Squash bees are a... oh, what the hell is the term for it? There's a specific term in the scientific field for the thing I'm trying to describe, but basically they only pollinate selective species of plants, and that's why they are called squash bees. They only pollinate stuff in the squash family, so like cucumbers, squashes, pumpkins, zucchinis, gourds, stuff like that. That's all they pollinate.
Challenge.
They will travel great distances to find squashes in people's gardens. That, like, you could have a mile or two in between these squash gardens, and bees will make it from one to the other just being able to smell the pheromones of the male flowers. Because the squash bees are one of the only reasons why squashes still even exist, among a couple other pollinators, but mostly just squash bees. They're very intelligent, and they understand. I saved him.
Oops, sorry.
He shouldn't have died.
You want me to keep them open too?
What is wrong with you, my love? Group Dick always had the nicest things to say.
Yeah, they know to move the pollen from one flower to another. Unlike a lot of other bees, which don't do that at all on flowers that have both male and female flowers, contrary to people's popular belief, and I can say this because I've sat outside in my fucking garden and watched them for hours alongside other bees, and squash bees are the only bees that will actively try to bring it in between two flowers and not just take off with it. Honeybees, like the honeybees from some of the people's hives that live around here, I'll see them get onto some of the flowers. They just take the pollen and they fucking leave. They don't bring it to another flower. They don't try to cross-pollinate anything. They just take it and leave. The only types of flowers they are good for pollinating are self-pollinating flowers, which already self-pollinate if the wind blows on them. People overemphasize the importance of bees. Then you have plants like beans and peas. Beans don't even need to be pollinated. They're self-pollinating before the flower even opens. So the second you see the flower bud on the thing, it's already pollinated itself. And the fruit is already formed inside the little tiny flower pod. And then the flower actually opens, and the only thing that's available for bees, and the reason that they even visit bean and pea plants, is because their flowers are rich in nectar. And if you've never eaten a bean flower before, or a pea flower before, they actually taste better than the actual fruit that comes off of them, because they have nectar on the inside of the flower, and the nectar tastes just like sugar and water put together with that hint of a bean flavor. Same thing with white clover. It has the same exact structure to the way that the nectar is on the inside of the flower and the bees only go to it to get the nectar. They don't go to it to pollinate it. They don't get pollen from those tiny flowers like that, because the pollen's all hidden on the inside. They can't grab it out and put it in their cubiculae or whatever it's called. The little sacs on their legs which hold the pollen. But that's only with honeybees and bumblebees. Squash bees and sweat bees don't have little sacs on their legs. They have hair on their legs, which is made for more sandy and grainy pollen. Whereas the bumblebees and honeybees are made to collect much bigger grains of pollen. And like I said, they just take off with it. Bumblebees do try to pollinate the flowers that they land on, though, through a thing called buzz pollination. Buzz pollination is, you've probably heard this before as well. You walk by a bush that a bumblebee is landed on, and you just hear... And you'd probably think that's the bumblebee, like, trying to intimidate you, because everyone always thinks that bumblebees and bees are trying to get them. But it's actually the bee doing something called buzz pollination. And it's where they land on the flower, and they literally just use their body like a little tiny vibrator, and they just vibrate the entirety of the flower. Because massive flowers, like roses, for example, require the pollen to be, like, jammed down into the female portion of the flower. Or else the flower never sets, and you never get a rose hip, which is the rose fruit. If you wanted to get more seeds anyways, that would be what you would need to do. Because hand pollinating them is very hard, because it's not just as simple as vibrating the flower. You actually have to, like, and the bees will do this. They'll, like, use their front two legs to sort of, like, knead the flower, and they'll knead the pollen grains into the flower as they vibrate it to, like, sort of get it settled into place. And even when they do that, still, only, like, 1 out of every 4 rose hips will actually get set. And most of the other ones will just turn black and fall off due to not being pollinated properly. Especially my neighbor's ornamental roses. Those things never seem to get pollinated properly. The wild roses I have in my front yard do, though. Or the cane roses, whatever you want to call them. They're just wild pink roses. They grow on canes like blackberry bushes. They don't grow on little tiny stout bushes. In fact, they don't grow into a bush at all. They don't branch. It's literally just one stem, one giant stem that grows one year, and then the next year you get flowers that grow out of the places where the leaves were the last year. Same thing as a blackberry bush. He was just walking. He was just casual. Killed in cold blood. Blood. Also, lasers OP, by the way. I don't know if we acknowledge that, but yeah. I did this and won the fight. Oh my. Why would you put the crossbeam up there? We didn't get the IVF, the in vitro fertilization. They should have just spelled that out. They shouldn't have even called it the IVF. I think it honestly would have been funnier if it was just an entirely spelled out long ass name. There's a chest back here, if you didn't know.
Blow my cotton socks off.
Got it in one, kid. You're sharp. The bosun, aka Keith, used to be an AI tech working for Dahl. He made me into this after he...
What's her name from SpongeBob SquarePants? Karen?
With the ladies.
Wow, and super cool. Hey, you don't happen to have a military AI around here, do you?
That's what that reminds me of. The computer from SpongeBob. That Plankton's wife.
Until the bosun reprogrammed me to be his companion. If you want to plug me into something more interesting than this dead ship, I'm all yours. Too many terrible memories here.
What? The hot chick's actually an ex-military AI reprogrammed to be some geek's fake girlfriend? Sold. Grab the lovely lady and get going. You've got some friggin' robots to build.
Jack to Jack. Mission complete.
I'm ready. Yank me.
I'll give you a good yank any day.
Jack, Lilith here. Good news is we found an old doll robot
Lewd.
factory, abandoned for the most part. We'll echo the Vault Hunter. Bad news is the scabs living there do
You know what?
not
I don't
like
even
us.
want to open this.
Hey, that's
I'd
awesome.
rather save
Apart
it
from
for
the you being
backpack
shot at part,
upgrades.
of course. Great work. Thanks. We'll be in touch once we've dealt with these guys.
Do we
It's
want
gotta be
Colonel
harder than it
Zarpedon's
sounds.
pistol? I don't really
This
want
thing
it.
working? Vault Hunter, you gotta get that factory's production line running again.
I know the factory he's talking about. I can help you navigate it. First, you'll need to catch a train.
Get bent, Zop. Super entrepreneur. Believe. Hey, that actually gives me points into a skill that I have. Stability contract. I don't want my stability to have a contract. I can grind those. I always forget. Grinder.
One of you gots to go.
Oh fuck, I never did the quest to get the ice cream. It's alright, I never would have used it anyways. Oh, we can go do the quest for Cosmo though. I forget how hard it is to double jump indoors to get the benefit from your Oz kit. The best man class mod is another good class mod. At least if you want to turn Jack into Axton. Jackston. Jack and Daxton. Cosmo!
Greetings, adventurer. I, Cosmo Wishbone, polymath extraordinaire, require your brutish assistance.
Polymath.
I intend to bless this moon with music of my own composition. To do so on the grand scale, I shall send a satellite into orbit. To this ends, I have built a rocket. Almost. Help me complete it and you will become part of my story. Interested? To complete the rocket, I require several key items, and will reward you handsomely for their procurement. First, go forth and fetch me a flow regulator. I have provided your echo device with the location of just such an item. A flow regulator will help control Excelsior's throttle. And apologies about the noisy neighbors. I could have done this myself, of course. I'm known to be a highly proficient warrior with a gun. But I'm in the middle of applying the finishing touches to my latest exploration into sound. In A minor. And it needs to be ready in time for the satellite launch.
I think this is the only time in Borderlands where you see a half-flip switch. Normally it'd be up or down. Leave it to me to notice a fucking stupid detail like that. This just happens to be the only switch in the entirety of the franchise where the switch is halfway. I should go post that as a comment on like a Jolts Dude video and see if one of his like crazy fans actually goes and tests it. By test it I mean actually just goes and looks for all the switches in the game. Because he's always into finding out cool little weird things like that. Oh, it's on the inside. Right. Not even in here. It's in a different zone because I'm smart. I'm totally not dumb. Dumb. Oh, dumb boy.
Nice work dealing with those scabs. Fire weapons love a bit of flesh to work on, especially in an atmosphere. Give me that weapon and let's...
I picked up an old distress signal in the Outlands. Someone might need help, but maybe there's bonds of salvage out there instead. Uploading the coords to your
echo device now.
Then I'm not the only one hearing beacons. With all the ships that rained out the skies during the Crackening, well, there was a lot of distress and not much relief. If other parties think there's some...
I forget I'm Joe Jack. Get your Joe Jack, and don't you Joe Jack no more. Hit the Joe Jack. And don't you Joe Jack no more, no more, no more. And hit the Joe Jack. And don't you Joe Jack no more. I still stand by my statement of Maya having the best skins out of all of the characters. I don't know why that is. Maya's got good fashion. Like, even this is just like, eh. The orange is like a little bit too dull for me, and the green's a little bit too vomitous. oh, we'll just be Jack. Jack. Specifically in that way of saying it. I am Jack. Also known as Joe Jack.
Works for me. One more every minute. Don't tell anybody where you got that. Hope it helps you kill stuff. Don't tell no one.
Oh, stuck.
That stinking traitor, the Marif, might be dead, but I hate leaving a job unfinished. Sure, I can't kill him again, much as I'd love to, believe me, but I can make sure no one remembers he ever existed. Dear old huckster kept kind of a diary about his exploits. Hid 3 juicy echoes in his
Whoa!
office. I want him gone. Find
A
him,
blue on a
destroy them.
first roll?
Let's wipe his grubby slate clean.
Oh, you're serious.
I always love the character's reaction to this quest the first time. This is like when Jack starts becoming a sociopath. But not this Jack. Because I'm Joe Jack. Oh yeah, that's right. There's no enemies here this time around.
Between you and me, the guy had an ego the size of a space station. A freaking space station. Those are pretty big. Seriously, the fish tank? What a prick! Come on, let's hear the old goat one last time.
First day on the new job, and it's great to be king. I've worked bloody hard to get here, greased multiple palms, and kissed more than my fair share of arse. But it's worth it. Concordia needs someone like me to steer it through some choppy waters. Tough, fair, just the right amount of open-mindedness. And if a bit of extra money happens to fall into my pocket as I do my job, well, I'll just
How'd you get in there, Karen?
Finance.
Or whatever your
Feels great
name
to
was.
leave Hyperion. There I was just a small cog in a huge machine. And here, I'm a big fish. I really need to work on my visual metaphors. Point is, the future's rosy for Huckster T. Meredith, aka Concordia's new Marif. Marif. A mayor and a sheriff.
Wow. How much crap can one guy shovel? Man, I did the universe a favor wiping out his back-shooting traitorous ass. You know what to do.
Wow, where did that first shot go?
Snooping around for another one.
Things could be so much worse.
The old moving bookcase, huh? That guy was a walking freaking cliche. Nobody puts stuff behind bookcases anymore. Who even has books? Let's have some fun and see what else our bowl shoveling pal had to say.
Everything's going according to plan. I'm richer than my wildest dreams. Popular.
Wildest
Alive.
dreams.
The other
Your
day,
wildest,
Philo Simmons,
freaking
the guy I
wildest
went dog
dreams.
came to the office to thank me for the work I did with the food drive. Thank me.
It's freaking wild.
Tears in his eyes, can you believe it? Trembling chin, the works. I'm a flippin' saint. Why can't I sleep anymore? Sure, I didn't use all
I wish I
my
could
health.
understand why a lot of Australians develop a natural raspiness.
I'm still what this place needs, aren't I? It's a hard universe, and yeah, I can still turn this around. I can still change.
A guy like that doesn't grow a conscience overnight. He said it himself. He was happy to steal the food out of other people's mouths. Sure, it's a tough universe, but there's no excuse for being an asshole. Unless you're funny with it. Then it's kind of totally fine.
Like the guy named Peapot. He's like, my old mate and the world's gone missing.
Own office? Okay, I actually gotta respect that. Still, guy's an asshole. Was. And why listen to this? Just destroy the thing, will ya?
Are you sure? I kind of want to hear it.
Fine. Man, who's the boss here?
She came last night, tall bitch. Made me betray Hyperion. Not that I care about the board. Money grubbers. Just the clueless workers I'm probably helping to kill. I'm done. I'm out. I could feel the last of whatever it is I call a soul being destroyed as I accepted a payment. But I didn't want to die. And if I didn't do what she said...
The hood of my sweatshirt right now couldn't be folded in a more fucking annoying way on my back. I have long hair, so it like constantly forces my hair off to one side, and it like fucking drives me mad. It's why I always get sweatshirts without a hood. I don't need a hat. I have a hat on my head. It's called hair. Sorry, most people have piss poor genetics and lose half of it by the time they're 50. Clothing should not be designed around your shitty common denominator. What's healthy if you have to take a bunch of supplements and or pills to stay quote-unquote healthy? Are you really healthy at that point? You aren't. You have been made healthy. That's different. You naturally aren't healthy in those situations. And then people get defensive when you say that they aren't healthy. I smoke cigarettes. It's not the healthiest thing in the world, but am I healthy? Does my bill of health come back? Do I have above average lung capacity? Yes. Yes and yes. That's by no means promoting it. That's just saying I'm physically active. Even though I eat absolute trash, I also eat an equivalent amount of good things, and I'm physically active. Even when I'm not doing stuff outside, I still putter. Sorry, I went out for a smoke. I said that just as I was about to go out for a smoke, because it was literally what I was doing. But it literally could be anything. It doesn't have to be that. And yes, believe me, I understand. Smoking cigarettes. Smokes with cigarettes is not good for you. But neither is a lot of shit people do. Most people's diets are the most unhealthy thing for them. In the same way that I was talking about how potting soil being sterile is bad. It's bad for you to eat sterile food with no bacteria on it. That's just sugars and nutrients. You know what breaks down those things? Bacteria. You know what a lot of people have a lack of in their lower GI? Bacteria. Good bacteria.
How egocentric does this guy have
You know
to be
why
to
that
hire
is?
body doubles? Dude's just a program.
People not
That's
eating
like a
fresh off the ground
grocery
food
store
anymore.
clerk wearing Kevlar. You're not important enough to kill, man.
People eating
Hello.
stuff that's been heavily cleaned due to being covered with pesticides, among other things. And it's funny because if you came to where I live and tried to eat something off the ground, it might make you sick, and you might think that that's bad. You might get the impression that you got sick because you shouldn't eat something like that. Like if, say, one of my cherry tomato plants, cherry tomatoes, falls on the ground, I should clean it off first. Maybe, if it started to rot, because maybe then you'd have the chance of botulism. But if it's fresh, it still like looks like it was on the plant, was literally on the ground for less than a day, then you can eat it. It's not like when you walk through an area and there's like a bunch of shit that people have tracked in on their feet and other garbage. At least if you manage your gardens the way I do. You make rock paths in between lines, so when you walk you don't track on shoe rubber or anything else into the soil. And like I said, I keep it nice and mulched, but I don't know, when I get sick, it's always when I eat from fucking places that really you shouldn't. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where I've eaten something out of my garden and then gotten sick because of it. One thing you do have to be careful of is slugs. If you know your plant has slug slime on it, or the thing that you're about to eat has slug slime on it, you do want to wash that off. But those are just things that you know to look out for after years of being a gardener. You wipe that kind of stuff off because slug slime can sometimes carry diseases in it. There's even that case of that one kid who got like paralyzed from eating something that a slug had been on. Like fully paralyzed from the chest down. But there's scary shit like that literally everywhere you go. Eating sterile food will put you in a worse position than if you had taken the chance. You just gotta be educated. Stupidity does not promote strong health either. You can get away with a little bit of things that dumb yourself if you're already smart. But when people are already dumb and I see them fucking drinking alcohol. This dude skateboarding. Oh wait, no, that's a cruiser. It's a longboard. Long-ish board. Not a trick board. Wonder what the fuck that dude's riding it at 3 o'clock in the morning for. probably like, this is the only time I can ride it without people looking at me and I feel stupid. Gotta learn somehow. I rarely ever judge people like that for making small mistakes. It's only when I see them do the same dumb thing like 7 times in a row that I just go like, are you sure you know how to do that properly? Like my neighbor, every time after a storm, motherfucker has like a John Deere tractor that's like mint condition that he uses for like remedial things such as like hauling wood like 20 feet from the wood pile to their garage where they have the wood stove, because it's like a garage with a house above it. So they have the wood stove in the garage and then they have all the piping that goes above to heat the place. And the dude like hauls all this wood with the thing. We got a storm, right? A couple days ago. We got a thunderstorm. Knocked a bunch of the tree limbs down off of the pine tree that's in his yard. What's he do? He doesn't use the tractor with the thing made to haul wood. No. He grabs every stick individually by hand and drags it over to the pile. And I'm just sitting there with my fucking head like exploding in like the amount of confusion that I can't even explain.
Can't wait.
Like if I had the option to use a fucking tractor to mow my lawn and bale up hay to put it into compost, I would fucking do that. Anytime. I'd use any excuse I could to drive that thing. But then again, the guy I'm talking about is like a super lush, to put it nicely. He's a lush, and he does a little bit of the, what would you call it? The snake bite? To put it in the most ambiguous term ever. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And if you hear that and you're going like, what the fuck does snake bite have to do with anything? Then you're probably not old enough to understand what I mean. But if you're old enough to know what I'm saying, then yeah, that dude does that shit heavily, and you see him out there half of the time walking around all sickly, and it just is so depressing for someone like me. Also, and this isn't me trying to support or defend smoking, this is just me giving someone or a person maybe a different perspective on something that they didn't understand. So smoking, especially modern cigarettes, is bad because A, smoke. Smoke is bad for you, but it's really not as bad for you as they make it out to be. Like smoke from wood or something like that. It's not actually that detrimental to you.
Man, even his statue is ugly.
Smoke from wood isn't gonna like lower your life expectancy by a huge amount, even if you're next to a campfire every day of your life. The thing with cigarettes that is actually damaging to you, and it really depends on the brand of cigarettes and what types of things they use, are the chemicals, one thing, And those, again, are actually very minute in the effect that they have on you, depending upon your circulatory system and how well your body can manage stuff like that. 2 is radioactive chemicals. So, there are a lot of chemicals that exist on the planet that are radioactive. A lot of people look over this because they don't pay attention in school at all. But if you went to school and you passed high school chemistry, then you should know that potassium is slightly radioactive. And if you didn't know that, it is about equivalent to 0.01 microsieverts. So if you were holding a Geiger counter in your hand up to a banana, it would be a 0.01. If your Geiger counter was not factoring in background radiation, because background radiation would always be present, no matter where you are. But not factoring in background radiation, it would be about 0.01 microsieverts. Depends on the banana, but your average Cavendish banana will be about 0.05. Bananas that are more rich in potassium will obviously have more microsieverts than a banana that is less rich in potassium. The same thing goes for fertilizers that have potassium in them.
Obliterating people is fun.
My beloved wife went for a drive hours ago but hasn't returned. She's still out there, lost in the darkness, perhaps worse.
So, hold on.
Deirdre. Return her to my waiting arms. I'm sending her last known location to your echo device. To think of my delicate pebble being roughly manhandled by a
potash,
thugs, or eaten by wild creatures. I beseech you.
which is potassium that is gotten from wood ash and let cure with water to absorb into either a clay substrate or another kind of substrate that can absorb that kind of chemical. And it is obviously radioactive because of it. But it's only radioactive because potassium's radioactive. Does that make it bad for you? No. Obviously not. You wouldn't eat bananas if it was toxic to you, now would you? But, that being said, potassium toxicity is a thing, and eating too much potassium can be bad for you. Due to the fact it is what it is. But I think you'll find that with just about anything. You take too much vitamin D, you can get vitamin D toxicity. Too much vitamin A, you get vitamin A toxicity. Even too much vitamin C is bad for you, even though they say it isn't, and they act like you can take like 250% of your daily value without having a downside from that. And there is. If you don't know how antioxidants work, antioxidants prevent things from oxidizing. That's why it is called an antioxidant. And you know why you have them. You know why they're considered really healthy for you. Because they help break down free radicals in your bloodstream, which is what build up over time, especially if you're on the heavier set side of things. So what does that mean? It means that common conventions have to be thrown out the window for what it would actually take to understand something in that limelight. That's not, again, that's not trying to say that it's too complex for people to understand why stuff like that doesn't have actually that significant of an impact on you. Or why having too much of it is bad, like vitamin C, for example. And that's why I mentioned it. Vitamin C, antioxidant. You don't want one type of antioxidant. You want vitamin C. You want all of the different, like, I can't list them because they aren't, I don't know what the different ones are off the top of my head, but there's so many different antioxidants that are found in so many different types of berries, tomatoes, anything that has color to it pretty much has some kind of antioxidant in it, if it's a fruit. If it's a red, a yellow, yellows tend to have the lowest concentration, but they still have some in it. Green fruits tend to be the ones that have no antioxidants or very low amount of antioxidants. Things like green bell peppers and stuff like that. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, red bell peppers have a lot more antioxidants, which is part of the reason why they are red. Same thing with blackberries and black raspberries. The variant of black raspberries and blackberries called salmon berries are just a mutation that causes the fruit to not get as much antioxidants when it ripens. And if you look up a picture of what a salmon berry looks like, it's just an orange colored raspberry pretty much, or a yellowish colored raspberry. It just has the lack of antioxidants, which gives it that purple pigment, like stain your tongue when you eat it kind of color sort of thing. And if you've never had a wild berry, they are way more rich than the store-bought berries, which are so full of water and so heavily watered during the growing process. They don't get the same type of sugar ratio. And, like I was talking about earlier, because they don't add in magnesium sulfate and other things to add in supplement to the overly watered soil, you end up with very watery tasting fruit from your commercial markets. Sulfur is actually one of the key things a plant uses to sweeten its fruit, at least if the fruit sweetness is based off of different alkaloids than sugar. Like tomatoes, for example. You can bring out the tomato flavor in a tomato by adding magnesium sulfate in during the flowering process. When the fruit's set, you'll notice this in the plant too, because the plant will also gain an increasing level of muskiness to it, because sulfur is the compound that a lot of plants use to build their terpenes and stuff like that. Terpenes and flavonoids and things like that. A lot of scent-based things. Especially if the plant is more on the musky or earthy side of the way it smells. Like a tomato plant smells nothing like the fruit. The fruit tastes no remnant of what the plant smells like. If you've never smelt a tomato plant or been around one that's growing, they have a very musky smell. Like they almost have a smell that's akin to certain strains of weed. It's a very rich smell that, like, sometimes can even reportedly, like, make people's eyes water the first couple times they're around it. Depending on the species, of course. My indeterminate cherry tomatoes are very stinky. If you even brush the plant wrong, you can just smell it from a distance, and it just smells like this really thick, musky smell. Nightshades have that similar thing that goes for them. Although potatoes don't, which is weird, because they're in the same family.
I'm freaking hate heights!
Potatoes, eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, nightshades. They're all in the same category, or genus, called Solanum. Which a lot of the plants in are actually poisonous, near to the point of being deadly. Tomatoes even still, certain heirloom varieties of tomatoes that are closer to the wild versions actually still have this toxin in them in minute amounts when the tomatoes are green and on the stems and stalks. And in certain people it causes an irritation on the skin to touch the plants. I don't have this, but I'm also Native American, so a lot of things that apply to people touching stuff and getting bumps doesn't apply to me. I'm resistant to poison ivy and stuff like that. I say resistant because I'm not immune. I'm resistant in the fact that I can touch it, and if I wash it off, I'll have nothing. It won't even itch. But if I touch other people after that, I'll make other people, like, get giant sores on them because I don't realize it's still on my skin. I just have thick native skin and a strong circulatory system and immune system, so stuff like that doesn't really affect me because my blood plasma takes care of it really, really fast. I forgot to complete the actual mission up here. I'm sorry. So stupid. I can't multi-brain. Anymore, anyways. I used to be able to, like, play World of Warcraft, talk to people, and listen to music, and watch TV all at the same time.
Messy.
The only thing I'm not doing that I did back then was smoke more weed. Which is funny because I was way younger back then.
Whoa, what's the big idea killing my man? And is that my echo message?
And a lot of people say it's bad for memory, but I actually have really good memory when it comes to actual knowledge. Remedial things my brain forgets because my brain just doesn't give a fuck about it. But I think everyone is like that. It doesn't matter if you smoke weed or not, and I really hate when people blame weed on that kind of stuff. I see people leave their phones, do dumb shit, leave the coffee on top of their car when they get in it. I've seen it all. I've seen it. I've seen it all.
Listen, if it gets that whack job off your case, I'm all yours.
If Myron's going to leave me alone, he has to think I'm dead. So we're going to kill me. Well, my evil twin Maureen. Myron doesn't know about her, and she's as loco as he is. Maureen's an escaped con hiding out nearby. Find her, kill her, then show her body to Myron. Simple, huh? You still here? Get going.
I'm not anywhere near you.
My death won't stage itself, you know. Off, there she is. She's making a run.
Off you pop.
I bugged your new base, but I trusted you, D. You'll so get murderized when you least expect it.
Okay, that's terrain. It do. It do. Indeedly do. There's an invisible wall around this entire section. For whatever dumb reason, they really just did not want you bringing a stingray in that tiny zone.
Thanks for killing my psycho sister.
There must have been a way to get stuck really easily, and instead of them just fixing it, they were just like, fuck it. Just invisible wallet. Jail him in. Because you really just cannot get over the invisible wall. At least I've never been able to. It's just a huge invisible wall.
I freaking hate heights.
You need like a Bodaboom or a Moonscaper or something like that. And just blast yourself up. But there'd be no point because you can just walk underneath it normally. Is Oscar over here? Oh my god, how did I do that? Can I have my vehicle back? Thanks. My vehicle. How did I manage to do that though? Too good.
How you doing?
Oh, come on. I don't... I'm gonna try and be creative here.
No! Whoa! I freaking hate heights.
Oh, didn't bounce good. You bounce like a little girl.
I need a pair of jacks.
I think cave is special. Contain methane, ethane, and other aim. Stay very cold for long.
Methane, ethane, and other N. Like butane? Hexane? No. No hexane. Oh my Ozkit.
You were quick, cave.
My Lanta.
Very cold and have nasty creatures. Stay cool though, eh?
My Lanta don't want none unless you got Lanta's son.
Trial works good.
Yas. Mother Russia.
But play. Play them dead and get me the ice.
Challenge down.
Blat, blat.
No. Crap.
How do you hit something that just flies in a circle?
Things here. So chill. Get special ice that get drill and put in new place.
Splat.
There, special ice, get. Good, drill look done here. Put in new place so we can get more special ice. Real little thing.
dragons?
Good. Get ice. Ice good. Put drill somewhere new. One more time.
Hey, mate. My drink's getting as warm as a kraken's butthole. Deliver me that special ice and I'll give you a bolter shotgun.
Yeah, but what about the ice kragons? Totally not stepping on the ice right now, dude.
It's strange ice. It's not normal.
He's not very normal.
Big sugar, take me in a drill. Kill. There, special ice cake. You take drill now. Хорошо. You do well. Bring ice and drill to Nina. Quick! Something here smell bad.
Don't forget about my drink. It's virtually a medical emergency.
Piss off. Suffocate. Is QED supposed to be like quick education? I don't know. That gives the snowball shotgun. Or you can get the ice cream.
It's good job. You make Nina very happy.
Ice
Maybe you'll be a
cream.
nurse now.
That's not a bad one either. I should have got this one earlier. What is that? Jacob's grip and Vladov stock.
Hard.
God damn it, fan. Stop. Stop it. Stop clickety-clacking.
The atmosphere around here is odd, eh?
Stop yakety-yak and don't talk back at me.
When I was a kid, I used to think that's where nightmares came from. So I used to try to hold my breath. Yeah, turns out that doesn't work. Keep it light, please.
Punch. 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 My 360 version of this game would freeze a lot of the time when the physics would happen for the ice breaking. Sorry. Why is that door closing a thing now?
Excellent work. I'd stand well clear of that hydraulic pump if I were you. Without that flow regulator, it might get a teensy bit angry. I should have mentioned the potential for an explosion. Never mind. Dust yourself off, and let's proceed. Now, I need a flight data recorder. My sources tell me the old Drakensberg recorder's in the grabby hands of a simpleton junk collector named Tony Sluice. I've uploaded his location to your Echo device. You should be able to snaffle it when he's busy showing you his ridiculous collection of worthless junk. Tony Sluice has been boasting about having Drakensberg's black box on the Echo network and launch for weeks. Think of proof that he is? Sounds like he might actually have it.
I never opened this when I was over here the first time. Good, because it wasn't that great anyways.
Let me know if anything catches your eye.
Nice. Worth. Literally impossible for them to kill me.
Touch the exhibits. Ah, I've visited a few of my famous collection of rare starship parts. Make a small donation and we'll get started. When I say donation, it's more the obligatory kind. It's right there, in case you're wondering.
Bring me up inside. I'm also a gas bag.
Oh,
right.
What a pleasant surprise. Now, let the grand tour begin. And keep your meat hunks off the exhibits or else you and I are going to fall out, and that will get real ugly. This here is the escape pod ejection system from the Starship Gigantic, destroyed in its maiden voyage after striking a comet. All 11,000 people on board were killed when their escape pod was launched, only to all smash into each other.
I'm just welding it for you, bud. Don't worry. There you go. Nice.
Power core regulator from the solar liner Crusade, which exploded in space dock when someone removed it for dusting. They tried to put it straight back in, but the Crusade was, you know, exploded.
What is my camera do?
And the tour continues this way if you like to follow me.
It has a similar glitch that the shotguns have in.
The best thing I got is this flight path recorder from the Drakensberg.
What the hell? That's such a weird glitch.
And came down not too far.
If you look straight up or down, look down sights and shoot. It makes your aim freak the fuck out. What the hell? It's again, it's like the bandit shotguns. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, well, kinda too late.
I am very cross now.
Finally, Excelsior needs a gyroscope for stability. I'll update your echo post-haste. The local ingrates won't be too happy about you taking it, but I'm sure they can be reasoned with. Well, I didn't expect such a robust defense from Tony. Still, progress demands sacrifices of us all.
I thought he was supposed to attack you.
You will find better merchandise anywhere else, I bet you that.
periscope now. Fend off those pervasive scabs. Honestly, there's no talking to some people. You wait, you. I will send the universe into raptures once Excelsior powers into the heavens.
Yeah, everyone's a musician.
Excellent. We're almost there. Return to my lab and I'll show you genius at work. You may have a little trouble with the neighbors again. Trajectory looks good. And let there be music. And wait for the thrill. What? No! What's happening? No, this cannot be. My music cannot die. I will boost the signal despite the considerable physical danger in which this places me. I need more power.
I can't hear anything. I can't even remember what this thing does. Just has really fast reload.
What do we got here?
Gagzookas. Gagzooks. Oh wait, my sting is on the other side. What is this invisible wall?
I've been thinking, now I'm free of him. The future's so iridescently bright. A new life betokens a new name. Felicity. It means happiness. From now on, I'm Felicity. Plug me in. I'll call the train. It might take a few minutes.
Train incoming!
Okay, let's check out the factory and get things moving ASAP. We need mucho robot bodies. We're gonna retake Helios and save the day and stuff. Capiche?
Let's go. Oh, he's just to get the fast travel of this place.
This is where we're gonna build a super awesome robot army. Honestly, I'm a little
Definitely wanted to use that gun. Going the wrong way.
This place gives me the creeps. I mean, even the rocks look like they want to stab you to death. Not that much lighter, is it? What is wrong with me today? That's to me, not you.
Why did I put on 2 cryo weapons?
Which one of you is least crap? This is what happens when you cross Iberian!
Oi, Vault Hunter. That loot's ours. Take 'em, boys.
What did I tell you about those snouts? The signal's coming from whatever remains of that structure up there.
Holy crap, I'm amazing at this! Oh no!
Wow! This place got ripped a new skylight, eh? They won't be getting their deposit back.
Stay quiet. Try not to make too much noise. Got my signal, eh? Good. I've been chased here by a gang of scabs led by some gearhead named Boomer. They want my head on a stick for stealing their ill-gotten loot. I hold up here to make a stand and then realise there are too many to...
I love my job.
Here they come. Head down there, help me fight them off. I'll drop as many as I can from up here. Yeah, come and get some, Boomer.
something. So I don't watch YouTube live streaming. Just I hadn't had internet for most of the day, so I wanted to watch a couple things.
This you've become fast friends with. Amelia's the name. Adventuring's my
Not like it
game.
matters.
That's on
My
my new
character
business card. Bit tweet?
is
I
a
like
beef
it.
boy right
But
now.
then I don't know what
He's a
tweet
beef
means.
bullying cube.
I'm Janie Springs. Do you think you'll survive this shootout? I hope so.
Otherwise, I've got 300 business cards that won't ever get used.
You can send me an Echo Net version because pretend I said something pretty. I'd like it. Well then, okay, Janie Springs, it's yours.
But which one's the real you? It's like choosing between the ladies. Oh, messy. Crazy weather around here, huh?
Well, little girlie has herself a pet vault hunter. Think your pooch is gonna save you, princess? You stole from me, and that means the big dark for you.
Can't steal from a thief, Boomer. If you want it back,
Tip for people who ever want to get good at sniping in this game. Aim assist doesn't really matter, you can turn that on or off. You either get used to adjusting for aim assist or don't. You can choose. I prefer aim assist because there are times when it's useful even if you are good at aiming without it.
First and last time I dated a pilot.
great. Come back up. You've earned your reward.
No squat.
So listen, since you helped me, it's only fair I split my loot.
Wow, did I actually get an upgrade from that? I did. Wow.
You want
Nice.
to kill or not be killed?
Thanks again. I better get going before any more of those scabs catch up.
Sucks to be you, Springs. You got zipped this time.
What are you talking about? I got something all right. I got Amelia's number. Nothing is never an option.
How do you know she's down with the scissor springs? Is that lingo? Is that approved lingo? well-dressed antagonist? What the hell skill is delegation? Oh. Weird. I guess that's like true Jack reliance class mod. You don't know my name. Oh, we did it. Come on, guys, we did it.
This is where we're gonna build a super awesome robot army. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed.
Aren't you the naysayer? Evidently, this place became a regular ghost town when Dahl packed up and left after the crackening. But we just need to get to the power suit.
Totally adequate explosive Nova Shield. It is completely adequate for you, every situation. Adequisa. Not even a word.
My weapon machines will fix that for you. See you soon. High quality, low cost, and no questions asked. Goodbye, man.
Hope they've not destroyed any key systems in there. Still, you know how to handle yourself, which is something.
Actually, there's a quest I want to get. That's not a gun. I'm a gun.
Listen, is treasure your thing? Well, this could be your lucky day.
I reckon we're about to hit the big time. I've got my mitts on an echo what says there's a treasure map in Outlands Canyon. Could be nothing, but I'm a dreamer, me. Grab that shovel, head over there, and see if you can dig up that map.
Ace! I'm sending some coordinates to your echo. Head out, and I'll give you a bit of a chinwag to fill you in. Whoa, this is gonna be lovely jubbly. Still doing that project I gave you?
Let's stop chucking away my ammo.
Can't move.
meant to be. Ask that dodgy-looking geezer about it.
You're after the map that was buried in, aren't you? Well, I dug it up. Look and flush that load fragment down the dunny. Don't worry, I'll get the moon a favour.
He flushed the map down the loo? I ain't giving up. It'll end up at the research facility garbage dump nearby. If you get your skates on, maybe you can find it.
I guess, but you're paying the dry cleaning bill.
Yeah. Just think of the riches if it does lead somewhere. Updating your echo now.
Timber logwood. It takes massive logs. It makes nice kindled timber out of them. With his log cutter. That's gross. If Hyro was here, he'd go, oh my god, Dustin. Ew.
Treasure map? Keep digging. That ain't no use to us. Looks like we got to bend our back some. Not afraid of a bit of hard work now, are we? That don't sound so good. Station. A nifty bit of fingersmithing there, and we can be back here in a jiffy.
That guy. Gone. Team Rocket blasting off again. Team.
Charges down and let's do some renovating.
Whoa!
Time for the big payoff. Open her up. I knew it. That Adams was a crafty bugger. What are you waiting for? Get in there. Oh, I don't mind telling you, I'm gutted. Right down to...
She's coming back for me! She's coming back! She's coming back for me! This is your home. Mine!
What the fuck?
I don't know. Something. Hello, since this moon was blown apart. They think I left, but I came warm moon that's precious to me. Me. Called me mad, they did. But I'm the one still alive, and I'm the one all the cool imaginary people want to hang out with. She came again last night, scratching at my ears. Let me in, she said. Go away, I said. I don't talk to imaginary people. Oh, I'm not imaginary, said she. I'm Eliza, and I'm just trying to find my way back home. So I told her, in that case, take the first left at It's Not Here, and straight on till I don't care. Huh? Tricky my brain is. Wants me to go mad, but I'm not gonna do that. Am I, Eliza?
Eliza? That's an unusual name round here. Take a look around the other room. There's bound to be something worth snaffling. Keep whatever you find. I'm feeling generous. Wasn't quite the treasure trove I had in mind. Still, come back and we'll get you paid up.
Great work. Couldn't have done it without you. So, there I was, thinking I'm all alone after the cracking.
After I
when
finish
you find
this,
that
I'm gonna
nutjob,
get
Rabbit
off.
Adams, and he goes and blurts out my sister's name. I thought Eliza was brown bread dead. Seems she ain't. Thing is, she was a right soft touch, and I don't think she'll be able to last long out here without my help. I'm uploading your echo with the last place she was seen, according to my sources.
Vapor compressor this side of Concordia for the price.
Are you sure it'll work with my buggy? It sure doesn't look rated for high pressure.
Yes, sir. Certainly it will. It's the very same unit you need, just rebadged by local merchants to deceive honest customers such as your good self. My price simply cuts out their inflated profit margin.
You got yourself a deal, young lady.
A pleasure doing business with you, sir. I'll leave you to install it then. I have an urgent appointment at Luna Junction.
Thanks again. Sweet but dumb. I'll run her over in a sec and take back my money soon as I've installed this shiny new vapor compressor.
Blimey, that's Eliza. But she sounds all weird and posh. Main thing is she's alive, but can't have known how close she got to being horribly murdered. Good thing that compressor was dodgy. If you hurry, maybe you can catch up with her at Lunar Junction.
I'm such a dumbass! Help me, she says. I've got moonstones. Ha! Liar! Now I'm stuck with rock stones and no ride. Well, I've got a hand-shaped ace up my sleeve. Ha! I'm gonna strangle that girl when I catch up with her.
He's flipping hysterical. Give him a slap. That should calm him down.
Thanks. I needed that. The pretty little rat flags me down, says she needs help carrying a load of moonstones. Soon as I get out, she jumps in and takes off in my flame chariot. Sure, I was about to rob her blind, but that's it. Honest, I wasn't gonna strangle her. Still, my chariot's got a tracker in it, and she's in for one hell of a surprise when I catch up with her. I can tell you. Strangle.
Liza nicked this geezer's wheels. Good on her. Find out that tracker's frequency. No one's finding my big sis but me.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I need that tracking frequency.
You're joking! No bloody way on Elpis, I'm telling you that! No, 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 no way! No! Strangle. 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 Strangly hands. Strangle. Strangle.
Strangly hands.
Strangle. 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 Strangly hands. Strangle. 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 Channel 27.
Nice work. He was
Strangly hands.
Right, tuning into channel 27 now and updating your echo.
Click. Chinook.
Set the challenge down, blap blap.
Blap. Blap.
Always trust the girl at your side.
Alright, let's just respawn it. Huh? How did it...
Echo and try not to hurt the Rathids. They're orphans, just like me.
Tracking that sly little minx for days after she stole my favourite rifle, Boganella.
I didn't hurt him.
Almost got her too.
I killed them swiftly.
Shut up at Flash Ride, but she's smart. Bruce, if you find this, she took the jet fighter keys. Must be on her way to Crisis Scar to steal my pride and joy. I'm losing blood fast, but if you can take her down, I'll get the last laugh.
You! That ain't Eliza either. But it sounds like she's got herself in a right 2-8 state. We've got to get to her before Bruce does. It don't sound too friendly. Sounds like she's heading to the Crisis Scar comm tower. Updating your echo now.
Hey, Peapot. Oh, mate, in the best world's gone missing. I said my whole mate in my best world. I'm more drunk than he is, and I'm not even drunk. Are you Dunk, boy? Are you LeBron James, boy? Like basketball. Unless it's NBA Street. I don't care.
Anna, are you following me? Who bloody sent you? Was it Dirty Dares? I need another month to get the sausage and mash cash.
Sis, it was me! I sent them!
Pickle? Blow me down, it's me little brother's fault, Anna. Well, since you're here, a bunch of nasty scads are about to arrive, led by someone who wants my noggin on a stick. Buy me enough time to refuel this jet fighter and I'll come and help. Deal?
Vault Hunter, help my sis and I promise I won't never nick anything out your pockets again.
Good job.
Stay put. Get it? 'Cause he's frozen.
Almost did it again. Splatus Maximilius.
You're alive, Vault Hunter. She killed my better third, Sheila.
Don't worry, Vault Hunter. I've got your back. spruce the place up and get the kettle on. Feel free to pop back when you can. I'd love you to meet her.
I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
Attention, atmosphere detected.
Chinwag, but our folks, the one-eyed through Dustin another couple. She scarpered. Oh, she left you a fancy one?
Ooh, and it's quick loaded. Yeah, Mike. Fuck yeah.
Said it was too mouthy for her or something. My fucking gun! Bloody empty. Awesome! Yeah, get me ready.
I'm a fucking god. Getting a fucking lady boner. Alright, well, I'm gonna stop my stream here. I'm just glad to have even been able to stream. Until next time, everyone, peace out.